In anticipation for Silent Hill F, I wanted to make a video about the remake of Silent Hill, specifically about Harry Mason. He's honestly one of my favorite protagonists in a video game, not because he's particularly well written, but because he's so likable and unconventionally funny at times.
I'm a cop. I should go.
No.
But here's the thing, being likable doesn't automatically make you a strong character, especially in a series that's famous for protagonists burdened by guilt, trauma, or deep personal flaws. Harry doesn't really have that in the original game. That doesn't mean the potential isn't there. It just wasn't fully explored back then. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the novelization, the play novel, and Shattered Memories to show you how Harry could be made into a far more interesting and complex character for a modern Silent Hill 1 remake. Let's get into it. When we look at Harry Mason in the original Silent Hill, it's clear he was written first and foremost as a player's self-insert. He's an everyman, a single father, a writer, and someone who's suddenly thrown into the most nightmarish situation imaginable. His daughter is missing in a strange fog-covered town. What defines Harry most in the first game is his determination, no matter how bizarre things get, cult members, monsters that shouldn't exist, and just Dahlia in general. He keeps going because Cheryl is out there and she's all that matters to him. That relentless focus on his daughter is what makes him memorable. But outside of that, Harry doesn't really have much in the way of depth. He reacts to situations with either confusion or compassion, and while that makes him likable, it doesn't necessarily make him complex. We don't learn much about how he's handling being a widower, what kind of father he's been to Cheryl up to this point, or even how his career as a writer might influence his perspective. He's written more as a set of noble qualities, a good dad, a good man, than as a fully fleshed out person. Now in the context of the PS1 era, this worked fine. The focus was on atmosphere, exploration, and letting the player project themselves onto Harry. But compared to later Silent Hill protagonists like James or Heather, who had layered inner conflicts, Harry feels more like a vessel than a character, and that's the foundation Blooper Team has to work with. With that being said, Silent Hill 3 actually gives us more insight into who Harry really was as a person. We obviously know from the first game that he's a good man, but in Silent Hill 3 after his death, we get hints of his more unpleasant qualities. This comes through Harry's notebook, which it's revealed that in Heather's infancy, Harry struggled with darker thoughts. At one point he even admits that led to sadness, anger. There were times when I put my hands around her tiny little throat. It's a disturbing confession that recontextualizes Harry as someone who wasn't just a flawless loving father, but a man weighed down by grief and resentment. Heather wasn't the same as Cheryl, and for Harry that caused frustration, even rage. In those early days he was gripping with the fact that his daughter had been taken from him and replaced by someone else, someone he didn't fully understand yet. Of course, what makes this compelling is that Harry overcame those impulses. He didn't even give in to them. Instead, he raised Heather, loved her, and protected her with his life. But the fact that those feelings ever existed makes Harry a more complex character than the original game let on. It shows he wasn't just a one-note good dad, he was human, flawed, conflicted, and at times dangerously close to breaking. Let's talk about some interesting character traits and details that only appear in the Silent Hill 1 novelization. These are things that never come up in the original game but add a surprising amount of depth to Harry. In the novel, it's revealed that Harry made a promise to his late wife, Jody, that he would always take care of Cheryl. That promise defines his role as a father. It's not just love driving him, but also a kind of vow that he refuses to break. Before the events of Silent Hill, Harry developed an intense fear of kidnappers, child abusers, and murderers. This paranoia pushed him to keep a licensed handgun in his car for protection. It even influenced his writing career. Harry wrote a novel called The Criminal's Mask, which explored how predators and offenders could go unnoticed in a small community. On top of that, we get a look into Harry's personal views. According to the novelization, Harry believed that if guns disappeared from America, crime would not disappear with them. It's fascinating because none of this is ever mentioned in the game itself, but these details give Harry a more defined personality. He isn't just an everyman dad, he's someone with specific fears, moral stances, and even a career that reflects his worldview. What's really interesting is how Harry's fears from the novelization actually shows up again in Silent Hill 3. At some point before his death, Harry gave Heather a taser for protection. You can find it and use it as a usable weapon when you return to the apartment not long after Harry is killed. It's a small detail, but it ties directly back to the side of Harry we see in the novel. The man constantly worried about criminals, kidnappers, and predators lurking in everyday life. The fact that he passed that mindset down to Heather through something as practical as a self-defense weapon really reinforces that his paranoia wasn't just in his head, it actively shaped how he tried to protect his daughter. So, what you might be wondering is, how could Blooper Team actually integrate all of this into a Silent Hill 1 remake without sacrificing the original tone of the game? Here's what I'm proposing. In the original Silent Hill, the monsters in Otherworld are primarily, completely, drawn to a lesser subconscious. But what if in the remake, they gave us a small window into Harry's subconscious as well? Think back to Silent Hill 2. Most of that game is built from James' inner psyche. But there are moments, like Angela's encounter with the abstract daddy, where we see the town through the lens of another character's trauma. Now imagine a section in the remake that does something similar for Harry. A boss fight or level segment where the environment shifts to reflect his greatest fear, losing Cheryl, or seeing her being taken advantage of by predators and abusers. It wouldn't take over the whole game, Alessa's nightmare would still be the foundation, but giving Harry one moment where his subconscious bleeds through would add so much more depth. It would tie directly back to what we've seen in the novelization, the stun gun in Silent Hill 3, and even his darker thoughts in Harry's notebook. It would make him more than just a vessel in Alessa's story. It would show that Harry himself has a shadow, one the town can twist and use against him. Just imagine it. Harry suddenly finds himself without a weapon, his gun taken away, his usual sense of protection stripped from him. In the distance, he can see Cheryl running headfirst into danger. No matter how hard he tries, there's nothing he can do to help her. That helplessness, that fear that he was not going to be able to fulfill his promise to Jody. Now picture the monster designs inspired by everything we've talked about, his paranoia about predators, his trauma as a widower, his desperate promise to protect Cheryl, grotesque figures that look like kidnappers with exaggerated, grasping arms, or abusers with twisted mask-like faces to hide their true identities. Creatures that taunt Harry not just physically, but psychologically, embodying the idea of people who prey on the innocent. Masahiro Ito would have a field day with that kind of concept. Monsters born not just from Alessa's subconscious, but from Harry's own deepest fears. It would be a sequence that not only pays tribute to Silent Hill's traditions for personal symbolism, but also finally gives Harry a space to be more than just a, character in someone else's story. For once, the nightmare would be his, too.